The warning lights painted everything red inside the engineering bay. Danny Roberts gripped the railing as another shudder ran through the colony transport's steadfast hope. Around him, metal groaned and pipes hissed steam from cracks that kept appearing faster than his team could patch them. Life support down to 40%, someone shouted over the chaos. Danny wiped sweat from his face and checked the main display. The numbers told a story nobody wanted to hear. Hull breaches on 3 decks, main engines offline, radiation leaking from the damaged reactor core. 847 people aboard this ship, and every system keeping them alive was failing one by one. He'd been a colonial engineer for 12 years, signed up right out of university because the pay was good and the adventure sounded exciting. His parents thought he was crazy for leaving Earth. Maybe they were right. Maybe he should have stayed home, married that girl from his hometown, taught engineering at some quiet school. Too late for those thoughts now. "Danny, we got another breach opening on Deck 7, his assistant called out, near the family quarters. His stomach dropped. That's where most of the kids were staying. He grabbed his emergency kit and ran. Up on the bridge, Colony Administrator Patricia Owen stood in front of the main view screen. She was 53 years old and had spent the last 20 years organizing colonial expeditions. This was supposed to be her final trip before retirement. Get these families settled on Taurus 7, then go back to Earth and spend time with her grandchildren. Now she was watching her ship die in deep space. "Administrator, we have an incoming signal," the communications officer said. "Galactic Council patrol ship." Patricia straightened her jacket. At least someone had heard their distress beacon. Put them through. The view screen changed. A Pelarian appeared, her skin glowing with soft blue light. The species always reminded Patricia of jellyfish, if jellyfish could stand upright and wear uniforms. "This is Council Patrol Vessel Swift Mercy. I am Officer Hilna. We received your distress signal." "Thank goodness," Patricia breathed. "We have critical system failures. Life support is failing. We need immediate evacuation assistance." Hilna's large eyes showed what might have been sympathy, hard to tell with alien expressions. "We can take 50 people. We will prioritize children and elderly according to standard council protocols." Patricia blinked. 50. We have 847 people aboard." "I understand. We are a patrol vessel with limited capacity. 50 is our maximum safe transport load." "Then bring more ships." Patricia felt her heart hammering. "How many vessels do you have in this sector?" Hilna consulted something off-screen. 14 patrol ships currently assigned to this region. Patricia did the math quickly. 14 ships, 50 people each, 700 maximum, still leaving almost 150 behind. If all 14 ships came, could you evacuate everyone? "Negative. Our protocols do not permit full sector vessel deployment for single rescue operations. Additionally, even with all vessels, we calculate insufficient capacity for complete evacuation of your ship." The words hit Patricia like a physical blow. She looked around the bridge at her crew, young people mostly, bright-eyed colonists who believed in building something new among the stars. In the family quarters below, children were probably scared but trying to be brave, parents holding them close. She thought about her own grandchildren back on Earth, wondered if she'd ever see them again. "So you're saying you'll take 50 of us and leave the rest to die?" Hilna seemed confused by the question. "We will save who we can. This is standard emergency protocol. Partial survival is preferable to total loss." "Preferable to who?" "Administrator Owens, I understand you are under stress. However, the logical choice is clear. Allow us to evacuate your children and elderly. They have the greatest remaining life expectancy and therefore the highest survival priority." Patricia closed her eyes, saw her crew again, the families, the kids, remembered why people signed up for these colony ships in the first place. Not just for new worlds or opportunities, for community, for the chance to build something together. She opened her eyes and looked directly at Hilna. "Officer, thank you for the offer, but no, we don't split up families. If you can't save all of us, then save none of us." The silence on the bridge was absolute. Even the alarm sound seemed to fade. Every crew member stared at Patricia. Hilna's bioluminescence flickered. "I do not understand. You are choosing certain death over partial survival." "I'm choosing to keep our people together. If we die together. If we live together. That's how humans work." "This is not logical." "Maybe not by your standards, but it's who we are." Hilna was quiet for a long moment. "I must consult with my superior. Please stand by." The screen went dark. Patricia's first officer, a young man named Robert, stepped closer. "Ma'am, are you sure about this? We could save the kids at least." Patricia shook her head. "You want to tell those kids they'll never see their parents again. You want to split up husbands and wives. Who decides who goes and who stays? No, I won't do that to our people." Robert nodded slowly. He looked scared but also relieved. "What do we tell everyone?" "The truth." Patricia activated the ship-wide communication system. "This is Administrator Owens. I'm not going to sugarcoat our situation. We're in trouble. The council offered to take 50 of us. I turned them down because I won't split up families. We knew the risks when we signed up for this journey. If anyone disagrees with my decision, speak now." She waited, silence from every deck. Then a voice crackled over the comm. "Danny from engineering. We're with you, Administrator. My team thinks we can buy another 18 hours by cannibalizing the cargo bay atmospheric systems. It's not much, but maybe it's enough." More voices joined in. Parents from the family quarters, off-duty crew, even some of the teenagers. One by one, people confirmed they'd rather stay together. Patricia felt tears burning her eyes but wouldn't let them fall. Not yet. The view screen activated again. Hilna looked troubled, her glow dimmer than before. "Administrator, my captain has confirmed we cannot force evacuation. We respect species autonomy. We will mark your ship as declined assistance and continue our patrol route." "I understand. Thank you anyway, Officer Hilna." "May I ask one question?" "Go ahead." "What do you hope to accomplish by this decision?" Patricia smiled sadly. "Hope isn't always about accomplishing something. Sometimes it's just about staying true to who you are. We take care of each other, all of us or none of us." Hilna's alien features were impossible to read, but something in her posture changed. Respect maybe, or just deeper confusion. "I will remember your words, Administrator Owens. I wish there was more we could do." "So do I." The council ship vanished from their screens, jumping to faster-than-light travel. Gone in seconds, leaving the steadfast Hope alone in the dark. Patricia turned to her communications officer. "Send one final message to Earth. Tell them we tried. Give them our last coordinates, and tell our families we loved them." As the message transmitted across the light years, Patricia looked out at the stars and wondered if anyone would even receive it in time. Down in engineering, Danny and his crew were already ripping apart the cargo bay systems, working miracles with spare parts and desperate hope. All around the ship, families held each other closer. Admiral Rebecca Stone hadn't slept in 36 hours. She stood in the operations center at United Earth Space Command, staring at the message that had arrived 14 hours ago. Around her, officers moved with quiet efficiency, but she could feel the tension in the room. "Read it again," she said softly. Fleet Coordinator David Park cleared his throat. "Message from Colony Transport Steadfast Hope. Critical system failure. Galactic Council offered partial evacuation. Administrator refused to split families. Life support estimated 72 hours remaining. Message ends with coordinates and personal farewells to family members." Rebecca closed her eyes. 847 people. She'd signed the authorization for that colony mission herself. Good people. Families looking for a fresh start. Now they were floating dead in space, waiting to die because they wouldn't leave each other behind. She respected that choice, understood it completely, but it didn't make this easier. "What's our closest vessel?" she asked. David pulled up the tactical display. Medical frigate Good Samaritan, currently 96 hours out at maximum speed. Too slow. Rebecca scanned the fleet positions. Every ship was marked with travel times, none of them good enough. "We need faster options." Lieutenant Amy Walsh stepped forward. She was young, fresh out of the academy, still believed in impossible solutions. "Admiral, what about combat jump sequences?" Every senior officer in the room turned to look at her. David spoke first. "That's for military emergencies only. The stress on the ship hulls is enormous. We'd be risking vessels and crews." Amy didn't back down. 847 civilians are going to die. Isn't that an emergency? Rebecca studied the young lieutenant, saw the fire in her eyes, remembered when she'd been that young, that certain about what mattered. "Explain." "Military destroyers and cruisers can make shorter FTL jumps, more frequent. It wears on the engines and hull integrity, but it's faster over long distances. If we push beyond safety limits, we could cut travel time by 20%, maybe more." David ran calculations on his display. The destroyer Relentless could reach them in 84 hours if they use combat jumps, the cruiser Ironclad in 88 hours. He paused. "But Admiral, we'd be asking crews to risk their ships for civilians." Rebecca thought about Patricia Owens refusing to split her people apart, thought about those families holding each other in the dark, thought about what it meant to be human. "How many ships could we send?" she asked quietly. David worked his console. "If we redirect every vessel within range and push them to combat jump speeds, we could get 23 ships there. Mix of military and civilian. But Admiral, the resource expenditure would be massive. The risk to those crews, the wear on the vessels, the strategic gaps we'd create in our patrol sectors." "I didn't ask about the costs, Coordinator. I asked how many ships." David met her eyes, saw something there that made him nod. 23 ships, Admiral, if they all push maximum speed and beyond." Rebecca turned to the communication station. "Send flash traffic to every ship within range. This is a priority rescue operation. All vessels capable of assisting are to redirect immediately to these coordinates." She transmitted the Steadfast Hope's location. "Tell them to push their engines as hard as they dare. Tell them 847 people are counting on us." "Yes, Admiral." The communications officer began transmitting. Within 20 minutes, responses started flooding in. "Destroyer Relentless, already breaking patrol route. Combat jumps authorized, we'll get there." Cruiser Ironclad, abandoning resupply station. Estimate 88 hours, every minute counts. Medical ship Good Samaritan, pushing engines to 110% capacity. Medical teams preparing for mass casualty treatment. Survey vessel Pioneer's Dream. We've got supplies and extra life support systems. 90 hours out. Then the civilian vessels started responding. Cargo hauler Big Betty. Got room for 200 if they don't mind sitting on supply crates. On our way. Luxury liner Stardust Wanderer. Canceling our tourist route. We can take 400 comfortably. Children get the best cabins. Mining barge Deepstone. Our cargo holds can fit people if we dump the ore. Tell them we're coming. Rebecca watched the tactical display fill with ship icons, all converging on one point in space. 23 became 40, then 50, then 60. "Admiral," David said, his voice thick with emotion. "We have 67 ships responding, everything from military destroyers to private yachts. They're all pushing maximum speed." She nodded, not trusting herself to speak. Across the galaxy, Council Monitoring Station Delta 9 detected the unusual fleet movement. Intelligence Officer Dern, a methodical Quillian with 4 arms and analytical precision, studied the data with growing confusion. "Captain Brennix," he called, "you need to see this." Captain Brennix floated over. His species didn't walk exactly, more like glided. "Report." Massive human fleet movement. 67 vessels all converging on a single point in space. Military and civilian ships. They're all exceeding safe travel speeds. Brennix examined the data. Is this a military operation? Are they claiming territory? Dern's 4 arms worked multiple consoles simultaneously. Unknown, but the destination coordinates match something. He pulled up another file. "Captain, these are the coordinates of that human colony ship. The one Officer Hilna reported, the Steadfast Hope." Brennix stared at the display. "That ship has 847 people aboard. They refused partial evacuation." "Correct, and now the humans are sending 67 ships to reach them." That makes no economic sense. The resource expenditure for such an operation would exceed the economic value of those colonists for decades. Dern continued analyzing. 3 ships have already reported engine stress from excessive jump speeds. 1 military vessel has hull temperature approaching critical levels. They're destroying their own ships to get there faster. Brennix tried to understand. His species valued logic above all else. Efficient resource allocation. Maximum benefit from minimum expenditure. This was the opposite of everything he knew. "Contact Council Intelligence. I want a full analysis of human behavioral patterns. There's something about this species we don't understand." Back aboard the Steadfast Hope, Danny had bought them an extra 18 hours. Total life support now estimated at 90 hours. The crew had organized rationing schedules, emergency drills. Anne Fitzgerald, one of the teachers, kept the children occupied with stories and games. Patricia received an updated transmission from Earth. Just 3 words that made her voice shake when she read them to the crew. "Fleet inbound, hold on." She didn't know how many ships, didn't know when they'd arrive, didn't even know if they'd make it in time. But her people heard those 3 words and something changed in the air. Hope wasn't logical. Hope didn't calculate odds or measure resource expenditure. Hope just meant someone was coming for them. All of them. Hour 87 came with a scream of stressed metal and overheated engines. The destroyer Relentless dropped out of faster-than-light travel so close to the Steadfast Hope that collision alarms shrieked on both ships. Captain Omar Nash didn't care about the alarms. He'd pushed his ship harder than regulations allowed, made jumps that the engineering manual said were impossible, and burned through fuel reserves that would leave him limping back to base. His crew didn't complain once. "Hail them," he ordered. On the Steadfast Hope bridge, Patricia nearly fell out of her chair when the communication came through. A military destroyer, scarred hull glowing red from atmospheric friction. But here, actually here. "This is the Relentless," a calm voice said. "We're here to get you home." Patricia couldn't speak for a moment. Life support had failed completely 6 minutes ago. They were on emergency oxygen reserves. People were getting dizzy from the thin air. "You're here. You actually came." "Did you doubt we would?" "I hoped, but I didn't know." Omar checked his ship's capacity calculations. "Ma'am, we can take 120 people maximum, but we're not starting evacuations yet." Patricia felt ice in her stomach. "Why not? We're dying here." "Because the rest of the fleet is 2 hours behind us, and we don't leave anyone behind." She started crying then, couldn't help it. The rest of the fleet. "Ma'am, you're about to see what happens when humans hear that someone needs help." Hour 89 brought ships dropping out of FTL in waves. The cruiser Ironclad arrived first, followed 30 minutes later by a cluster of civilian vessels. Medical ship Good Samaritan. survey vessel pioneers dream, cargo haulers and passenger liners, mining barges and personal yachts. Patricia watched her screens fill with ship signatures. 67 vessels, all broadcasting the same message. Steadfast hope, we're here for pickup. The children in the family quarters pressed against the viewports, watching the fleet assemble around their dying ship. Anne Fitzgerald had to keep wiping her eyes to see clearly. Life support failed completely at hour 90.5, but by then the fleet had already begun coordinating evacuations. David Park aboard the ironclad ran the operation like a military ballet. Relentless, you take families from Deck 3. Stardust Wanderer, all children transfer to your ship. Good Samaritan handles injured and elderly first. Big Betty, you've got the engineering crew and their families. Ships matched airlocks, emergency tubes extended. People moved through the connections in orderly lines, families staying together every single step. Danny Roberts and his engineering team were transferred to the survey vessel Pioneer's Dream, which had full workshop facilities. Danny carried his tools and refused to rest until every person was off the Steadfast Hope. The Stardust Wanderer, a luxury cruise liner, received all the children. The entertainment staff immediately went to work, turning the evacuation into an adventure. Kids who'd been scared hours ago were now getting tour of a ship that had swimming pools and movie theaters. Patricia Owens was one of the last to leave her ship. She stood on the bridge as emergency lights flickered and died. Her first officer, Robert, waited with her. "Time to go, ma'am," he said gently. She took one last look around. This ship was supposed to be their new beginning. Now it was a tomb waiting to happen, but everyone aboard was alive. Everyone. "All of them," she whispered. "They came for all of us." 4 hours after the first ship arrived, the evacuation was complete. 847 colonists transferred to 67 ships, 0 casualties, families intact, children safe. Captain Omar Nash sent a message to the entire fleet. "Good work, everyone. Let's bring our people home." 67 ships turned in formation and began the journey back to settled space. On Council Monitoring Station Delta 9, Captain Brennix had watched the entire operation in silence. Officer Dern finished his analysis and presented the data. "By our calculations, the humans spent more resources on this rescue than those colonists would generate in economic value for 50 years. 3 ships sustained engine damage requiring major repairs. They left 7 patrol sectors temporarily underdefended. The operation was strategically and economically inefficient." Brennix nodded slowly, "And yet they did it anyway." "Captain, I don't understand their decision matrix. What logic drives such behavior?" Before Brennix could answer, Officer Hilna entered the monitoring station. She'd requested permission to observe the human rescue operation. She was the one who'd first encountered the Steadfast Hope, the one who'd offered to save 50 people. "Permission to speak, Captain." "Granted." Hilna displayed the conversation she'd had with Administrator Owens. "She told me they don't split up families. She said all of them or none of them. I thought it was pride. I thought she was being irrational. And now I think we're the ones who don't understand. We calculate maximum efficiency. We save who we can and accept losses as statistically inevitable. But humans don't think that way. They see 847 individuals and say that's 847 reasons to send everything they have." Dern's analytical mind struggled with the concept. "But the waste, the inefficiency." "Is it waste?" Hilna asked quietly. Every human ship in range responded. Every captain pushed their vessel to the limits. Civilian ships abandoned profitable routes. Military vessels left strategic positions. And they did it without being ordered. They did it because someone needed help. Brennix pulled up tactical analysis of human fleet coordination. The operation itself was flawless. 67 ships from different commands coordinated perfectly. Zero accidents during evacuation despite urgent timeline. If they can organize like this for a rescue, imagine their capability in warfare. The implications hung in the air. Dern spoke carefully. Captain, what happens if we ever face conflict with humans? You saw what they did for 847 people they'd never met. Now imagine what they do for people they actually care about. Hilna looked at the image of the human fleet, 67 ships protecting their colonists. They sent everything they had, not because it was efficient, not because it made economic sense. They sent everything because those were their people. Brennick's made a decision. Prepare a full report for the Council. Include all tactical analysis, resource expenditure data, and behavioral observations. The Council needs to understand what kind of species we're dealing with. What kind are we dealing with, Captain? Brennick's watched the human fleet jump to FTL, carrying every single colonist home safely. The kind that doesn't abandon anyone, ever. That makes them either the most valuable allies in the galaxy or the most dangerous enemies. Which do you think they are? I think, Brennick said slowly, that depends entirely on how we treat them. In the human fleet, Patricia Owens sat in the guest quarters aboard the Relentless. Captain Omar had given her access to the ship's communication array. She sent a message to Admiral Stone. Thank you doesn't seem adequate for what you did. You sent 67 ships for us. Admiral Stone's response came quickly. You're one of us. That's all the reason we need. You made the right call, Administrator. We don't do things halfway. Patricia understood then. This wasn't just about saving her ship. This was about proving what humanity valued above everything else. Each other. The council chambers on Unity Station had existed for 3,000 years. In that time, countless species had presented arguments, debated policies, and made decisions that shaped galactic civilization. But lead analyst Quern had never seen a session quite like this one. His Mentarian species valued pure logic above all else. 3 eyes arranged in a triangle on his face, each one processing different data streams simultaneously. Right now, all 3 eyes showed confusion. The resource expenditure equals building 2 new colony stations, he stated flatly. 3 ships sustained engine damage requiring major repairs. Human patrol sectors were left underdefended for 72 hours. The conclusion is unavoidable. The operation was strategically and economically irrational. Council members from a dozen species sat in their assigned positions. Representative Torth, whose species communicated partially through geometric light patterns, projected a question into the air. Could this be a demonstration of military capability, a show of force? Intelligence Chief Vanna, a Crescent with sensor stalks instead of eyes, made a negative gesture. Our analysis shows no invasion force brings medical ships and luxury cruise liners. The vessel composition makes no military sense. Diplomat Solon leaned forward. His species, the Versh, were natural mediators. Perhaps this is a cultural ritual we haven't encountered. Many species have traditions around death and dying. Then why didn't they all die? Quern asked. They chose collective death, then immediately worked to prevent it. The behavior is contradictory. Someone activated the main display. It showed human history files. Ancient battles where soldiers carried wounded comrades through enemy fire. Ships staying with sinking vessels. Rescue operations in natural disasters where responders risked their lives for strangers. The pattern was consistent across human history and cultures. Quern tried to process it logically. They routinely choose collective risk over individual safety. This suggests a fundamental difference in decision-making processes. Officer Hilna stood from her observer position. As the Pelarian who'd first encountered the steadfast hope, she'd been invited to provide testimony. Her bioluminescent skin pulsed with emotion as she spoke. "Permission to address the council." "Granted," Council President Marek said. His species, the Thorians, were known for wisdom and patience. He sensed this young officer had insights worth hearing. Hilna projected the recording of her conversation with Administrator Owens. The council watched Patricia refuse partial evacuation, heard her say all of them or none of them with complete certainty. "I offered to save 50 people," Hilna said. "Standard protocol, maximum efficiency." She didn't argue about the number. She didn't negotiate for more ships. She simply refused because it meant splitting families. "And she understood this meant possible death for everyone?" President Marek asked. She understood completely, but splitting them up wasn't even considered an option in her thinking. It wasn't a choice she could make. Quern's 3 eyes blinked in sequence. "Explain this concept. All choices can be made. Logic demands we evaluate all options." "But humans don't start with logic," Hilna said. "They start with loyalty. The logic comes after." Administrator Owens saw 847 people as one complete unit. You can't divide one. You can't partially save one. Either the whole unit survives or it doesn't. Diplomat Solon nodded slowly. "So when they sent 67 ships, they weren't being inefficient. They were treating the rescue as binary, success or failure. No middle ground." "Exactly." Hilna displayed more data. "And every human ship in range responded without being ordered. Civilian vessels abandoned profitable routes. Personal yacht owners changed course. They all understood the same thing Patricia Owens understood. Those were their people." Intelligence Chief Vanna's sensor stalks quivered. "We've analyzed communication patterns. The phrase, 'no one left behind,' appears in human military codes, civilian emergency protocols, and even children's games. It's embedded in their culture at every level." Military Strategist Core, a heavily armored Torathian, spoke for the first time. His species understood warfare better than most. "This presents a tactical concern. How do you fight an enemy that doesn't retreat when it's logical, doesn't surrender when it's sensible?" The room fell silent. President Marek let the question hang in the air for a moment. Then he addressed Core directly. "Are you suggesting humans would be dangerous enemies?" "I'm suggesting they'd be unpredictable ones. You saw the fleet coordination. 67 ships from different commands worked perfectly together. 0 accidents during a complex evacuation. They didn't need central command because they all shared the same objective: save everyone." Quern processed the data again. "In theoretical conflict scenarios, opponents who value survival will calculate cost-benefit ratios, will retreat when losses exceed acceptable parameters. But if humans don't use those calculations, then traditional warfare doctrine doesn't apply," Core finished. "You can't negotiate with someone who won't abandon their people. You can't force surrender by capturing partial forces. Every conflict becomes total." Representative Torth projected new geometric patterns, a question about economic partnerships. Council economist Dreth, who'd been silent until now, activated her display. "We've observed interesting developments in human trade sectors. A mining concern on Hadron 9 experienced equipment failure. Their Quillian partners offered standard insurance compensation. Their human trade partner sent repair crews and replacement parts at cost. When asked why, the human response was, 'You're our partners. Partners help each other.'" "Another unprofitable decision," Quern noted. "But look at the long-term data." Dreth expanded the economic models. "Human trade partners report higher satisfaction rates, lower conflict over contract disputes, greater willingness to renegotiate during hardships. The inefficient immediate responses create efficient long-term relationships." Diplomat Solon sat up straighter. "Because they're not optimizing for individual transactions. They're optimizing for relationship sustainability." "Which our economic models don't account for," Dreth admitted. We calculate value per exchange. Humans calculate value of the partnership itself. President Marak listened to all the perspectives. Then he asked the question that mattered most. Given everything we've observed, what should the Council's official position be regarding humanity? The debate that followed lasted 6 hours. Some argued for maintaining distance. Unknown variables were dangerous variables. Humans were too unpredictable to integrate into Council systems. Others argued for careful engagement, study them more, learn their patterns, develop better models. But Hilna offered a different perspective. She stood before the Council again, her bioluminescence bright with conviction. We left 847 humans to die because our protocols said 50 was the maximum efficient rescue. They sent 67 ships because their protocols say you save everyone or you failed. I know which approach I'd want if I were in danger. Representative Torth projected agreement patterns. Several other council members nodded or made equivalent gestures. Military strategist Core added his support. The steadfast hope wasn't a military operation. It was a rescue, but it demonstrated capabilities we should respect. Better to have such people as allies than enemies. President Marak called for a preliminary vote, not binding, just to gauge council sentiment. Should the council pursue formal diplomatic contact with humanity? 34 members voted in favor, 8 abstained, 3 voted against. The motion carries, President Marak announced. We will prepare an official invitation for humanity to join galactic civilization, but not as ordinary members. Their approach to mutual aid is unique, valuable. We should offer them a role that matches their strengths. Analyst Quern's 3 eyes focused on different aspects of the proposal simultaneously. What role would that be, President? Humanitarian response specialists. Let humans teach us what they know about refusing to abandon anyone. Let them show us how loyalty can be logical after all. The council session ended with authorization for a formal proposal. Teams began drafting the invitation immediately. On Unity Station's observation deck, Officer Hilna watched ships come and go. Wondered what the humans would say when they received the Council's offer. Wondered if they'd accept or refuse, and what that choice would mean for the galaxy. She remembered Patricia Owen standing on her dying ship, refusing to split her people. Somehow, Hilna suspected the human response would surprise everyone again. News traveled fast in the galaxy, but truth traveled even faster. Independent journalist Prill couldn't believe the story when she first heard it. She was Cavian, a species that valued factual accuracy above social comfort. Her people had 4 mandibles that clicked when she talked, and right now they were clicking rapidly as she verified sources. 847 humans refused partial rescue. Entire fleet responded. Everyone saved. The story seemed too simple, too clean. But every source confirmed the same details. She published her report on the Galactic Network with full documentation. Within 3 days, it reached thousands of colony worlds. The reactions varied wildly. On Pelara Prime, the homeworld of Officer Hilna's species, young Pelarians gathered in public forums to discuss the human response. Their elders preached traditional values of logical efficiency, but the younger generation found something inspiring in humanity's collective loyalty. A student named Riln started a social movement. She called it Bond Before Logic, and the slogan spread across Pelarian colonies. Her manifesto was simple. What good is surviving if we lose what makes us worth saving? Traditional Pelarian leaders worried about emotional decision-making replacing careful analysis. But Riln's movement kept growing. Young Pelarians began questioning protocols that prioritized efficiency over community. The Quillians, methodical and analytical by nature, approached the story differently. Officer Dern published his observations as a research paper, resource expenditure paradoxes in emergency response, human models. His conclusion shocked his colleagues. The human approach, while appearing wasteful in individual incidents, created stronger societal cohesion. This cohesion led to better long-term outcomes. Communities that believed rescue was guaranteed showed lower anxiety, higher productivity, and greater willingness to take calculated risks for collective benefit. A senior Quillian economist named Vrel built on Dern's work. She created models showing that universal rescue protocols, despite higher immediate costs, reduced long-term social friction. Societies spent less resources on internal security, dispute resolution, and trauma treatment. Her paper's title became famous: The Mathematics of Loyalty: Why Inefficiency May Be Optimal. It was controversial. Traditional Quillian thinking valued precise resource allocation, but Vrel's numbers didn't lie. Human-style loyalty protocols showed unexpected benefits in the long-term calculations. Trade guilds across the galaxy took notice for entirely different reasons. If humans would send 67 ships for their own people, what would they do for trade partners? A mining consortium on Hadron 9 found out firsthand. Their primary excavator collapsed during a routine operation. The Quillian partners followed standard protocol, offered insurance compensation, and scheduled replacement equipment delivery in 6 weeks. Their human trade partner, a supply company called Stellar Logistics, responded within hours. Repair crews arrived with replacement parts. The expedition leader, a man named Foster, seemed confused when the mining consortium asked about the bill. "You're our partners," Foster said. "Partners help each other. We'll invoice you at cost for the parts. Labor is free because that's what partners do." The Hadron 9 consortium had worked with dozens of species over the years. Nobody had ever responded like that. When they asked why, Foster looked genuinely puzzled by the question. "You do the same for us, right? That's how partnerships work." The story spread through merchant networks. Other companies began seeking human trade contacts, not because humans offered lower prices, but because they offered something more valuable: reliability during crisis. On the independent mining world Velar 3, a tunnel collapse trapped 200 workers underground. Mixed species crew, Quillians, Palarians, Velorians, and 28 humans among them. Local government mobilized rescue teams, estimated 48 hours to reach the trapped miners. A human freight captain named Ryan Cooper was delivering supplies when he heard about the accident. He offered his ship's industrial cutting equipment. The local officials were polite but dismissive. "We appreciate the offer, Captain Cooper, but we have sufficient equipment. Our teams are already mobilized." Ryan looked at the rescue timeline, looked at his cargo hold full of mining tools, made a decision that would have confused most species. "I'm staying anyway. If you need the equipment, it's here." He diverted his ship, parked in orbit, waited. 12 hours into the rescue, a secondary stress point was discovered in the tunnel structure. The local cutting equipment couldn't handle the reinforced materials without risking further collapse. The rescue coordinator remembered the human captain's offer. Ryan brought his equipment down within the hour. His industrial cutters could slice through the reinforced sections cleanly. No vibration, no stress fractures. The rescue time dropped from 48 hours to 32. But that wasn't the only contribution. A human mining consultant named Lisa Ford happened to be on Velar 3 visiting a different site. She heard about the rescue and offered structural analysis expertise. The local engineers initially refused, pride making them defensive. Then Lisa showed them her calculations. Her analysis revealed a potential secondary collapse point that their scans had missed. Addressing it added 4 hours to the rescue, but prevented a cave-in that could have killed the rescue teams. All 200 workers were extracted safely. The Quillian crew chief, A methodical individual named Tech approached Ryan after the rescue. Your ship wasn't assigned to this colony. You had deliveries scheduled elsewhere. Why did you help? Ryan seemed confused by the question. Because you needed help. Tech's analytical mind struggled with the simple answer. But the cost, the delay in your deliveries, the resource expenditure. Tech, there were people trapped underground. That's the only calculation that mattered. Stories like this accumulated across frontier space. Human medical ships diverting to plague outbreaks. Human colonies sharing water reserves during droughts. Human transport vessels towing disabled ships to safe ports. The pattern was consistent. Humans helped, often without being asked, frequently at cost to themselves, and when asked why, they seemed genuinely confused that it needed explanation. Back in council space, cultural anthropologist Neera compiled her comprehensive study of human behavior. She was Velian, a species known for curiosity and thorough research. Her report took 6 months to complete and filled 3,000 pages of analysis. The key finding appeared on page 1. Humans possess a philosophical framework centered on mutual aid. They call it humanitarian behavior. It means help given without expectation of return. She presented her findings to a council subcommittee. They read her interviews with 47 humans involved in aid operations. Most seemed genuinely confused by questions about expected compensation. One ship captain's response became famous. When asked what he expected in return for helping a disabled Pelarian vessel, he said, "I expect them to help someone else when they can. That's how decent people behave." Council economist Dreth reviewed Neera's work with particular interest. The data showed humans operating on different value systems than any species the Council had encountered. They calculated worth in relationships, not transactions, measured success in community stability, not individual profit. It was economically inefficient by traditional standards. It was also remarkably effective at building trust across species barriers. The Council vote on formal invitation to humanity came 3 weeks after Neera's report. The debate had shifted from whether to invite humans to what role they should serve in galactic civilization. President Marak proposed they become humanitarian response specialists. Their protocols would become templates for new rescue standards. They'd coordinate disaster relief across council space. The vote passed, 34 in favor, 8 abstaining, 3 against. The official invitation was transmitted to United Earth Space Command. Now everyone waited to see how humanity would respond. The United Earth Government Chamber buzzed with voices from every continent. Admiral Rebecca Stone stood at the podium, holding the formal invitation from the Galactic Council. Around her, representatives from 100 nations debated the decision that would shape humanity's future among the stars. Public forums had been discussing the invitation for weeks. Billions of humans weighed in through every available channel. The arguments were passionate on both sides. Those in favor talked about technology access, economic opportunities, and diplomatic recognition. Earth would gain trading partners, access to advanced medicine, and a voice in galactic affairs. Those against worried about military obligations, loss of cultural identity, and becoming dependent on alien technology. Independence meant something to humans. They'd fought too hard for it throughout history to give it up easily. The polls showed the split clearly. 52% in favor, 31% against, 17% undecided. But the debate kept circling back to one question, not about economics or technology or strategy. The question that mattered was simpler and harder. What did it mean to be human among the stars? Patricia Owens testified before the assembly, the woman who'd refused to split her colonists during the Steadfast Hope crisis. She wore simple clothes and spoke without notes. The council offered to save 50 of us. We said all or none. Earth sent 67 ships. Now the Council wants us to join them, but on their terms with their protocols. I have to ask, if we'd accepted that first offer, if we'd split up families and left people behind, would Earth have sent those ships? The chamber fell silent. Would we still be the humans who send everything we have to save everyone? Or would we have become the humans who calculate acceptable losses? Captain Omar Nash spoke next, the destroyer captain who'd arrived first at the Steadfast Hope. He still carried the scars from pushing his ship beyond safe limits. We didn't rescue those people for recognition. We didn't do it for rewards or alliances. We did it because that's who we are. If joining the Council changes that fundamental fact, then what's the point of joining? Teacher Anne Fitzgerald, who'd kept the children calm during those desperate hours, had the final testimony. I told my students help was coming. I didn't know if it would arrive in time, but I knew if it could, it would. That belief, that certainty, is what makes us human. That's what we can't lose. The Galactic Council's ambassador, Officer Hilna, addressed the assembly via quantum communication. Her bioluminescence pulsed with what humans had learned to recognize as sincerity. We're not asking you to change who you are. We're asking you to teach us. Your species does something we've forgotten. You care for each other as a default setting, not as an exception to the rule. We need that perspective. The galaxy needs it. She paused, letting her words settle. But I'll be honest. We have rules, protocols, and procedures built over thousands of years. They exist for efficiency. You'll be asked to work within those systems. Sometimes that will frustrate you. A representative from South America stood. What happens when your efficiency conflicts with our values? When your protocols tell us to save 50 but we want to save all? Hilna's response was immediate. Then you show us why saving all matters more than saving efficiently. That's what we need you for, to challenge assumptions we didn't know we were making. The debate continued for another week. Philosophers and strategists, economists and ethicists all weighed in. Dr. Raymond Bell, a noted philosopher, published an essay that shifted the conversation. He wrote about Earth's role in human evolution, how the harsh environment forced cooperation, how survival required protecting the entire group, not just the strongest individuals, how humanity emerged not despite Earth's dangers, but because of them. His conclusion resonated across the globe. We are, at our core, a pack species. We protect the pack. The question isn't whether to join the galaxy. It's whether we can do it as humans, not as imitations of other species. The diplomatic team began negotiations with council representatives. Earth wanted specific terms written into any agreement, non-negotiable conditions that protected human values while allowing cooperation. The final treaty took shape over 3 months of careful discussion. Humanity would join the Galactic Coalition as humanitarian response specialists, but with conditions that made some council members uncomfortable. Human rescue protocols would take precedence in emergency situations. The all-or-none approach had to be attempted before considering selective evacuation. Human vessels would maintain independent command structures. No Earthship would be ordered to abandon people in need. Earth retained the right to respond to any distress call anywhere, regardless of council jurisdiction or politics. Council analyst Quern reviewed the terms with his 3 eyes, processing different concerns simultaneously. They're asking for significant autonomy, the ability to override our protocols in emergency situations. President Marak considered the implications. They're asking to help everyone on their terms instead of our terms. Is that really so different from what we invited them to do? Hilna added her perspective. They'll follow our coordination frameworks, use our communication networks, integrate with our logistics, but when it comes to the core decision of who to save, they want final authority. I think we should give it to them. The council vote was closer this time, 26 in favor, 14 against, 7 abstaining. but it passed. The treaty was signed on Unity Station in a ceremony broadcast across both human and galactic networks. Admiral Stone led the Earth delegation. Patricia Owen stood beside her, along with Captain Nash and Engineer Danny Roberts, not politicians or career diplomats, the people who'd lived the values they were representing. Patricia read the human statement. She kept it short and simple, the way humans preferred. We accept this responsibility. We'll help where we can when we can. We'll bring our methods, our values, and our determination. But we do this as humans, all of us or none of us. The words echoed through council space, simple, direct, undeniably human. Before the celebrations ended, a distress call came through. Mining platform in Sector 19. Asteroid collision. 340 workers trapped. Mixed species crew, Quillians, Pelarians, Velorians, Torathians. The council began calculating optimal rescue response. Ships available, travel times, capacity limitations. Admiral Stone interrupted politely but firmly. With respect, we'll handle this. She transmitted to Earth Command. Any ships in range of Sector 19, we have people in trouble. Within 8 minutes, 14 vessels responded. Military ships, civilian transports, even a passenger liner that dumped its scheduled route. They all converged on the same coordinates. Captain Nash coordinated with local authorities. Engineer Danny worked with Quillian structural specialists. Medical teams prepared for casualties. But this time, humans weren't working alone. Hilna's ship Swift Mercy joined the operation, bringing council medical supplies. Quillian vessels contributed advanced scanning equipment. Pelarian rescue specialists integrated with human teams. The evacuation became something new. Human coordination, council resources, joint operation between species who were learning to work together. All 340 workers were extracted in 18 hours. 0 casualties. Families reunited. Different species helping each other because humans had shown them how. A Quillian crew chief named Marin approached Danny afterward. Your cutting technique combined with our structural analysis saved 6 hours. That could have meant lives. Danny smiled. That's the idea, we're better together. Hilna spoke with Patricia, watching rescued workers embrace their families. You were right, all of them. It matters. Patricia nodded. It's the only thing that matters. The story spread across galactic networks, not just the rescue, but what it represented. Humans hadn't joined the council to become like other species. They joined to show different ways were possible. 6 months later, the Steadfast Hope colonists finally reached Taurus 7. They weren't alone. Council provided advanced habitat equipment. Quillian geologists volunteered to survey mining sites. Pelarian agricultural specialists helped establish food production. The colony that almost died in space became a symbol of what cooperation could achieve when species learned from each other, instead of just working alongside each other. Patricia stood on Taurus 7's surface, watching ships arrive and depart. Admiral Stone visited during the colony's first harvest celebration. How does it feel? Stone asked. Changing the galaxy by refusing to split up families. Patricia watched children playing, human and alien kids learning together. We just wanted to stay together. Somehow that changed everything. Deep in space, another distress beacon activated. Unknown species, 70 survivors. The nearest human ship was 60 hours away, too far by traditional calculations. But Captain Lisa Park of the cargo hauler Steadfast Spirit received the signal. She checked her navigation charts, then smiled. 3 other human vessels were positioned between her and the distress call. She opened a communication channel. All human ships in range, we have people in trouble. Let's coordinate our approach. 7 ships altered course within the hour, not because it was efficient or profitable or strategically sound. Because that's what humans do, All of them or none of them. And now they were teaching the galaxy the same lesson.